Okay, thank you, um, Java user group, Bangalore, for inviting me for delivering this session, and sharing my knowledge to the community for Java developers. In fact, so this is actually the way we have planned these sessions is that we're breaking it into three different parts. One is trying to understand the containers, and see what are those things required to build a containers, and how it exactly helps in the development and application development, and writing code and putting it into the production, and also see how you can dockerize a piece of code, and I'll just take a simple Java example, and give you an overview of how exactly you can design and dockerize code, and then using cloud, how you exactly you can push it. That will be our today's agenda. Just give me a okay. That will be today's agenda. So basically, I'll take the first part very slow, and we will go through the containers, containerizing a simple Java code and deploying it into the cloud. That is, this is today's agenda, and 20th Feb and 6th March, which is a continuation of this series, specifically, to uh, you know understanding how to orchestrate the containers, from a Kubernetes architecture perspective, and understanding the terminologies and concepts required to build these containers and orchestrate many containers together, and build a scalable application there. On 6th March, we'll deep dive into scaling containers using virtual kubelets and Keda and other tools which is there, followed by demos with for all of those in all of those tool sets and concepts which we are talking about. So, given these two packed agendas, 3-part series has been designed, and why we are doing this session, right? It's very important to understand from a uh, from a Gardner report, right, from 2022. By 2022, you will see almost 75% of the organizations will be running containers, and there will be a lot of applications in production which will be run on containers, and orchestrators which is required to orchestrate these containers. So that is the main reason why today's session has been planned, and so that everybody can understand these tool sets. Even I learn a lot of things while I'm delivering these sessions, and we can definitely learn a lot of things taking this session back to your home and playing around with these set of tools. Um, so given that, what is a container, right? So I just want to take back to my journey, the way we were developing products. uh, while a developer is building a product, he installs a lot of binaries and libraries onto his system with the code which is developing, and then give out the configurations, and the way he has to the package those dependencies and other things to the ops team, and then ops team take that and go back and deploy it in the production. Usually, it's very difficult to have a maintenance issues, because as a developer, I might upgrade my binaries, I might upgrade my libraries, or even install some other libraries, and don't even inform the ops guy, and there is no proper channels, for informing the ops operations team that, this is what I've changes I've made, this is the reason why I've added. And we were just discussing the problem, right? There was JDK 9, JDK 15 solves this problem, solves that problem, and that library I would have installed in production, it would be different. Here it would be different in in my laptop. So there is a lot of differences in the package, and that is the reason why it was very difficult for moving the applications faster to the production. So it was taking a lot of time to understand the intricacies and packaging it right. So what containers did was, it's basically packaging applications with right set of dependencies and right set of configurations. Everything packaged, required configurations are packaged into that one specific containers. So basically you're virtualizing the apps and libraries and binaries which is there together. You're packaging it and hosting it on the OS. So what happens here is, it is portable, it is reusable, and it's, what you're developing is what it is going to the operations team, and it's pretty easy for you to deploy your applications. So just to give you the way it used to be, right? So if you see this, there is a hardware, there is a host OS on top of it, and there is a hypervisor which is virtualizes the which creates the virtual machines, right? And you create these virtual machines, and there is you are deploying applications on these virtual machines. Now if you see this, there is a utilization is very less, since you are installing a library on these virtual boxes, which is not packaged with different apps. So what happens is, if there is another set of application which is using the same library, there's a reusability of these libraries and binaries. The moment it reuses, that if something happens, even your other application goes down. So to manage all these things, right, it's pretty easier to use containers. The reason is you're packaging it together, you're packaging all the necessary things together, and it is not affecting each other. And we will see a demo of that, and I'll show you. Most of this this session is focused on demo. So this is just an introduction, and just trying to understand that there is a virtual boxes and you have containers installed, and you're not utilizing these virtual boxes to its fullest, and there is no portability if you're using apps directly onto the virtual boxes, and there is no agility in the development, because of developer is developing, and if his code is not directly going into the production, it's not fast enough for the customers, right? So given that, the advantages which we have already discussed, right? So there is, you can host a lot of apps on the virtual boxes just by using Docker engine there. That means that the change you can see, right? So there is hardware, there is host OS, and then directly it goes to a Docker engine, and obviously Docker engine creates a specific set of containers you can add on top of that, right? So that's how you can improve the app development, and why containers are required. I'm not going very deep dive into it, because most of the things are available out there. I'm just going to show you some examples in the demo how this is exactly working, and how a developer team and how an ops team can reuse this code, and how it can be deployed onto the cloud. Okay, so just keep this in mind. I just want to talk about the benefits of using containers. It's easier to ship the code, because as I told you, right, what developer is developing on his development box, he's pushing the same to the production. And it is also about portability, right? And since I'm not changing the environment, because all the necessary dependencies and configurations are packaged together in a container. You're not there is easy way to port between different infrastructure. So you have deployed it on one box, and if something happens to that box, you can deploy the same package onto the another box without any issues. So only maybe it takes time to download some of the dependencies, but it's only a one time download that we will anyways take it in the example. um, and the and it's also very important to understand efficiency as well, because the resource utilization while we were developing products in VMs, and hosting it without containers, the resource utilization was very low, and we were not really making the making use of the infrastructure strength. So this the containers gives you an option to make sure that you use the resources right, especially with the orchestrator, which we are going to discuss it in the next session. But with the orchestrator, you can definitely make sure that your resources are utilized in a better way. And scaling is definitely a very important aspect. And you can really scale with replications. You can really scale these containers, especially in cloud. You can just deploy these containers and replicate these containers, and make sure that you can scale pretty fast. And similarly, it's easier to put this into together, all so a little bit of piece of code into containers, and putting everything together and use the orchestrator to scale is definitely on the card, so which we are going to discuss in our next session though. um and given all this, I just straight want to go into the demo. So we as just try to understand that there is environment which is required for deploying an application. It requires you to install some of the libraries and binaries. Say for example, if you're using Redis or Postgres with your code, you need to install their libraries or binaries which is required for development. And if you are doing it individually, it is shared, so your resources is not really utilized. So if you're packaging it together and creating specific containers, different set of containers, and deploying it onto a virtual box, then it is easier to make use of these applications. So given that, I'll just go into the demo. um, so to do containers became very famous with Dockers. So I have there is no difference. I've heard questions like, what is the difference between a container and a Docker? So it's not, there is no difference. Container is a concept, and Docker is a tool which is built on that concept. And so I've installed Docker already, so you can easily go back and find how to install a Docker on your MacBook or on your Linux boxes or on Windows. Just install Docker. And there are a couple of things which is very important for from understanding purpose. um, so you know since this is a packaging system, you need to package it and put that artifact somewhere. And that is a place where you can post these artifacts, right? So I'm just going to show you. We'll go back and see some code and show you how to push this code into an artifact, and build this artifact and push this artifact into the one location, and how we can reuse that artifact as well. So I've just written a simple code. There is no brainer here. It's a simple code which is doing stuff. It's basically giving the today's date and time, and then some output for saying hi to Java developers. So if I run this code, I can just see that there are a couple of it's just an output which is throwing. So if I have to dockerize this code, you have written a code, you have a Java code, you have built this code. Now you want to dockerize this code. You need to design a Docker file. Okay, so I'll just show you a simple Docker file. To designing a Docker file, right, you need set of commands. I'm using the best way to do this is by installing Docker container extension onto your Visual Studio. And there are couple of commands which you need to give, and you need to understand these commands in a very advanced manner, because if you understand these commands, it's very easy to build a Docker file. So this code, you already know how to do it, and all you need to do is to understand how this exactly fits into a Docker file. Once you build this Docker file, um, 50 to 90% of the 50 to 60% of the Dockerization is done. So let me show you the commands which is there. So so there are a couple of commands. It always starts with from is an image. Okay, so it's like it starts with a base image. So always packaging starts with a base image, right? If you're creating a package of a VM today, if you're using a VM, imagine there is a VM and you're packaging that VM. Then what is exactly you're looking at? Then you're packaging a first is always OS, and probably the couple of uh, you know libraries, or a couple of dependencies and other things which is required. You're packaging it together. So it always starts with from. So if you see this, I am just giving JDK 8. We were talking about 15, we were talking about 14, and you can provide whatever the latest one was. Well, and if you're looking at latest, you can also change the tag and say latest, right? And now it becomes, it installs the latest in JDK always, for the developer, or in the operations, for the operations team in the production, it's the same. So there is nothing which changes, because these packages are already built and hosted at the Docker hubs. Okay, so um, if it is if it is not uh, latest, then you can provide the tag whichever is there. So how do you identify, how do you understand what needs to be used here? As I told you, I'm using the Docker container extension with the Visual Studio. So if you go and just hover over the from, right, it gives you all the instructions. So what needs to be done here? So whether I can use it with tag, I can just give the base image, or I can give the digest information as well. And there is copy. It provides you the what needs to be done, and what is the source, what is the what is the destination path, and there is a working directory, what all things you can do. And then there is run and entry point. So basically environment, we understood what is from. It is a base OS, so you're packaging the first part, the packaging the OS. Or you can, by default it is a Linux container. So if you're not using anything as a image from a OS perspective, if you're not typing like Ubuntu or anything else, probably it will just take the base image as a Linux, and then you can provide whatever other things which you're using. And from an environment perspective, it is always a keep your values. It's basically you are giving out what should be the port number, what is the environment. I mean, there are a couple of environment configurations which you usually provide. Just remember that these environment variables you're providing, will be specific to the container. It will be specific to the container which is being built, right? And then there is a working directory. So what you're telling in a working directory is the context. So you're telling you're telling the virtualized part of the your application, that this will be the working directory from where the next set of commands or next set of activities will be executed. So you are giving a working directory path, and then you're telling this is where your commands are getting executed. And then there is an entry point where after a specific container, after the image is built and container is running, this is the command which is going to be executed at an entry point. So this is very important, and this is command, it's input to the entry point. There are a couple of things which you can add in the command, but only one you can provide in a docker file. Okay. um, and then there is copy is from your source machine to the location where you are specifying. So if I have to say in for an example, let me oops okay, in an example, right, we did say from from the latest jdk. So I don't have to install jdk on my laptop itself. It's just that I can use that image directly. And any other developer who want to use this image, they just need to download the image and start the container, and they will be able to run it. So basically, I just need to say from and use that one. uh, Let me go back here. So I'm copying the source code which is there on my local box into this specific location. And I'm telling that this is the working directory from the container perspective. And I'm telling these are the commands. This is the command you want to run, and this is the entry point, and this is the one which will run always whenever I run this specific container. Okay. So let me go back to this. So then there is something called as add. So add is nothing but you are uh and it's basically you have a tar file or a zip package, you want to untar it at a specific location within the container. You can use that, and if there is something which you want to download through a url, you can use that specific command. And then there is run, which is running in terms of within the container. It executes this command, and it provides input to various it sets the tone, right? And you can see those. I have used the run command as well to compile a java application. And then there is expose, which is exposing a port external, so that we can connect with the other containers as well, or or able to access the applications which is running inside these containers. So given that this is how you can actually design docker file. We have done almost a simple docker file here. So for example, from copy work, almost I've used most of the things. So you just we are just running a simple hello jug code. Okay. And I'll go back to my terminal, and type docker and click on this. uh, so it's basically, I just want to show you some of the commands which you can run. So there are couple of commands which you can you need to know. I will not be able to go through all the commands and give you a overview, but you just need to understand. It's basically a docker engine. You have a docker client which is talking to docker engine to do specific activities. So basically these are the set of commands. Most important ones are the build, pull request, and a pull and a push, and couple of things like images and killing, and then listing all the containers whichever is running. So there is a difference between image and a container, so I'm going to talk about that as well when we start building the image. So there are various commands which you can actually take a look at it. But there are very important ones are the network one and the volume one. This is used for making sure that two different containers talk to each other over a network. You create a bridge and it is talking through a bridge. So it's pretty easy to do that. If I have to build Docker network, um, Docker network. Let me know, I forgot the command. So Docker network create, right? Okay. Docker network create says jug. So I create a bridge like this, and Docker network list. It will list all the bridges which has been built. So you can see that I've just now enabled a new net bridge, and you can actually create two different containers and use this bridge to talk to each other over a network. So that's how I think that it's you're actually virtualizing your applications itself with all the packaging and all the necessary things. It's like OpenJDK 8, which I'm packaged. My laptop could have installed JDK with different versions, but I am using the version which is being provided by the Docker file. So given that, let me show you. So I already have a Docker file. Okay, so now I need to build this Docker file. So very important. It's simple, three steps. It's always the same. It never changed whenever things were happening. Even before this, right, we were building and pushing these artifacts to uh, some location, and centralized location, and so that everybody can use this package. And then as a developer, you can also pull from that location, right? Pull from that location. So this is exactly the steps which we were using before as well. It's just that the way this is built and this is managed is in a different way. So let us go back and build. So Docker build with a tag saying that vs my app, my vs Java app with version 2, and say from the location which is current directory. So if I click this, what will happen is it will start building. But even before I do this, right, I just want you to check what are the images which is there. So as of now, I have open GDK image, which I have already downloaded. If I had not downloaded this, it will also download this, because it takes time to download this. And to show the demo, it will take time, so I have just downloaded it for you. But if without doing any of these, if I just do and build it, it will start downloading all the dependencies which is there. There could be a couple of dependencies, more dependencies as well, if you're while building a complex applications. So it will take some time to for the first time it to get started. So if I'm let's us go back and build the code which we had designed. So vs Java app version 2 dot. So I'm building this code. So if you see this, it is executing step by step. And if you see step one, it does from OpenJDK, it checks whether that image is there or not. If that image is not there, it runs this, it downloads this image. If and then it copies the code, that is the code which I had to the to the uh, Java directory, source Java directory. And then there is it's running the command, and then its entry point has been set. set, and it is built, and it is tagged. So this is called tagging. So I'm tagging it as version 2. The reason is I have already built a version 1, and I put that version 1 in the registry. So the way registry is set up, okay, so let me show you the images. If I go to Docker images, I can see there's an image which was built and created 58 seconds back, and you can see this is the image which came in. So I have the image. So image is the difference between an image and a container is that image is just an image. I've built the package. I've just kept the package here. Container is a running container. So if I execute a container, it runs a container, right? So it's very simple, very easy run. Docker run, this is what I like about Docker. You can just say Docker run, and the uh, first three letters of the image ID, if you just give that and say Docker run, it runs. So it's easy to understand what exactly the command which is running. So you know I've just created a version to tag, and we have just run that specific application. But there are three ways you can actually put manage this image. One, you can host it on a private repository, or you can actually push it into a public repository, or you can use the cloud container repositories which is there, right? So basically what you're trying to do is uh, what you're trying to do is pushing this specific image, which is the package, to a centralized location, so that anyone can pick this package and run it on their laptops without installing any of these required dependencies and configurations which we can set it up. That is entry point, and for environment variables and various other things which is there, which you can design in the Docker file which we discussed earlier. Without doing any of these things, you can just go back and use that as a development environment. And from a production perspective as well, I can just take that and run it in the production without any making changes to any of these things. So um, let us see how we can use repository. There are I talked about public repository. So Docker Hub is a public repository from Docker. So it's and you can see there are there are lots of container images hosted here, and most of them are official images released by the companies which is managing these applications, managing these platforms as well. So you can see there are many container images stored here. For example, if I go and put as Jenkins, you can see there are lots of images which has been already packaged. And if you go into these packages, you will see there is a very complex Docker files written, and you can see you can actually understand by reading those Docker files. You can actually understand how exactly to design a Docker file. And there are a lot of Java based apps as well here. So you go back and try it out. This is a public repository, so where anybody can host this here. You can also create a sign up, and with pricing and other things you can also pay and make it as a your own private repository. But I am using Azure container repositories. I have access, so I'm using it. So basically, if you go back and I've already created one, but I'll just show you how to create one. Create a resource and go back, and here type container uh, registry. and you can actually see, and you can select a resource group, and you can give a name, jug test. uh, so you can see that registry will be hosted here, jugtest.azure.cr.io, and you can select the location which you're using, and then you can select whichever standard and whatever it is, and just go back and just review and just create, and it will get created. So I just don't want to spend time in creation of this, so I've already created a registry. So you can use any of the registry. You can also create your own private registry. So there is no hard rule. You should be using specific registries. So it is already here, and I know I just need to copy this. There is already one version of application which is already there. So I'll just copy this. Oops. I'll just copy this, and you can see that it's the version one. So here's Java app, and what is the sorry? Let us copy this first. So let me go back to my code. I mean so if you see here Docker images, you can see there is only one version here. Now I'll do Docker pull, and I'll just pull from the repository where I have a particular version. Um, ta-da. I can copy this and go back to my this and say pull. But this is a tedious way to do it, right? So best way is always using the extension. So if you see here, I have I have a registry already, and this is what we have in terms of in the Visual Studio, and this is a version one. So I just need to go back and here and pull the image. So I already have all the controllers here. I'm already set, so I just need to click on pull the image, and it just pulls the image for me. If you see here, it's not here yet. This is the local images which is on my laptop, and this is the images which is there in my container registry. So as of now, I'm trying to bring the image which is there in the container registry uh, to my local. So it's executing Docker pull, and you can see it's going to pull it now.
Vivek, while we're waiting for the pull, there are quite a few questions in the chat. If you can take a
Oh, is
stab
it?
at them.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I didn't interrupt you because my connection may be a bit flaky, so may not be able to hear me properly. So if you can have a look at them, or whoever, if you could help if you're there on the call, not sure.
Yeah, so
Because my connection is a
I
bit
see
shaky.
that
I'm
there are
really
a couple
sorry
of
for it.
no worries. I think I thought okay, I'll take it in the end because there are a lot of things to demo. So yeah, no, it's not a YAML.
As per your
Yeah, no worries. It's not a YAML. It's basically a simple it's simple commands which with arguments. So if you see from this, it's not a YAML at all. And correct, these are things. So let me come back to all these questions at the end, because there is we'll see what is these things so that you will understand why these are required and stuff like that. Okay. Um uh, you know if you see here, I can I just downloaded the uh, image to my local, right? So if you can see here, there's a couple of images which was there, and now we downloaded the image here. We go back here and see that images, and you will see the version 1 is here and the version 2 is here. Now if I go and run 5 4, you will see this is the version 1 which is there, and this is version 2 which we created, right? So there is a difference, right? So if you see that, the code itself is different, but one I just pulled it from the registry, one I just locally created. Now we can uh, push this to the registry back, which is the version 2, which I want the latest version to be there in the version to be there in the registry. So what I'll do is I'll go back here and tell that I want this version 2 in the registry. So it's easier to do it, and as if I click on that, so it's just pushing it. While this is happening, I can take some questions. I'll go back to the chat, and there's quite a bit of questions, so I'm not sure. uh, so there is already an answer for that, and there are so Sanjay Rawat is obviously helping me out here, so thank you very much. There are latest as the latest version you get in English. Yes, so it's basically it depends on the latest which has been pushed onto the Docker hub, and it's the official official release which has happened in the Docker hub. So that is a version which will pick up from, and uh, so this is the same discussion. Mm. So working directory is basically a directory from after you specifying a working directory, all the commands which is given below this is executed in that specific location. It's basically to be very specific. This is a working directory, right? And I if I want to execute a specific command, I need to come to this directory, and then only I can execute Java's compile and execute the Java code which is there. So that is exactly the steps you're specifying to the Docker file, what exactly you should be providing, and what are the next steps which is going to be executed. um, That's true. Using the latest is always a challenge in terms of developer development environment and production environment. It is always good to have a tagging whereby the developer and the production environment manage the right set of libraries and necessary configurations, right? So which is absolutely correct on which you mentioned. So Docker isn't a YAML, which I've already answered. um so this extension which I'm using is Docker container extension. So you can easily find that out, and you can just connect to any of these registry, any of these service, and then use it. um, It's true. Hypervisors are more from VM perspective, and Docker images are OS perspective. You can run Docker on just a bare OS, or you can use it uh, with the with the VMs. VMs is with VMs it is very different, and Docker images can run on these VMs as well. That's true. So command versus entry point is more from uh, executing the executing the command which is there in terms of after running after running the container. And command is also that, but what it is, it's overrides. It can override the entry point. That's true as well. And what happens is either one you can use. So if I have to show this, let me show this way. um if I go and write cmd here and type something, say java version, right? So if I just say java version as some command, so it also already this provides you the different what needs to be done here, right? So basically from it is an input to an entry point, and you have to use with the entry point. There can only be one cmd instructions in a docker file which you can use. Similarly, from an entry point perspective as well, if I use one more entry point here, um, one more entry point here, there can only be one entry point. You can't have more than one entry point. So it's already providing you all the information. If you're using this this extension, you can see why you have to use, what you have to use. It's already been provided. So command is just a execution with bash and other things, and the entry point is to make sure that uh, once your docker image is built and you're running this docker image, and you can see the entry point execution, and that's what is executed. Anytime you run this image, entry point is what gets executed. Okay. So now what we did was we pushed this to the registry, and we can see that version 2 must be here. Okay, so you can see that the version 2 has been pushed, and we saw that it is already on the repository. So let me go back and show you how you can run this in the cloud. Okay. um, so now what we did was we had a java code. We wrote we wrote a docker file. We dockerized it, and we packaged it by creating an image. And that image is pushed to the container registry. And in container registry, it's nothing but it acts as a repository. Now it is there in the artifacts has been built, and it has been pushed to the registry. And you can also run the container locally, and or you can use that container on the cloud. So how you can do that? So you can just go here and create a resource, say container instance. I want to run an instance of the code which I have built now. So I'll just create a new one, create, mm, use the one which is there, and say jug test, and I use Azure Container Registry. See, you can see you can either use Docker Hub or other registries. If you are running your own private registry on your VM and or a different kind of a host, you are setting up your own, you can use it, or you can use the Docker Hub, or you can use the one which I am using. So it's basically the registry which you're using, the image which you are running, and also the image tag, which version you want to run. Say I'll choose version 2, because which we are using, and it determines which OS we are using. And you can actually select the size, the infrastructure you want for this specific container to run. And then you can provide different types of uh, DNS, label it, or you can provide the network and other things and the ports which you can access this container through. And then you can also add certain commands. So this is what command overriding is. We can override the command which is already there in the container and write this, give this specific command which can override the command which is there in the Docker file. Okay, so this is one way, and I'm just going back and reviewing. And um, so I'm just validating and creating. So now I've used the registry. So since I pushed the code, built the image and pushed it to the registry, I'm taking from that registry and you reusing that code in the container instance I'm going to create now. So it will get created, and we will see some kind of um, execution happening there. While it happens, we can go back and answer some questions. The many questions again. I don't know where did we. So cost wise, it should reduce depending upon the kind of application you're building. um it's always uh, if you're building many containers, it's always if cost effective. If you are just building one container and trying to build all this and running it, maybe you might feel that it's costly. But if you are building, usually in a typical enterprise in a startup world, there are many containers, there are many microservices, you can reuse the infrastructure in a better way. Definitely it reduces. And I'll show you how you can scale these containers in via virtual kubelets and keda, which is there, which will give you a better understanding of scaling and reduce cost for sure. um, for entry point and command is, yes, true, but entry point is available. And Docker does general volume. Okay, managing network and volumes can be done from KS as well, keeping all functionality and okay, correct. Because see, Kubernetes is running on containers, right? So ultimately, it provides you a container D, and you are using the container D to uh, you know use the network and volume and other things which is required. So definitely it's nothing but a Docker. But we will talk about Kubernetes next session, but it is more from an orchestrator. These containers are built, but there might be 100 containers, and how to manage these 100 containers in production is what Kubernetes gives you. um, so containers discover each other. It's basically you need to connect via network. You can use something called as Docker Composer also to define these set of things which you can do. Orchestrator is the best way to do it. And Anup has already answered that question. Thank you, Anup. You've been a real good help. Thank you very much. So we have already deployed this. So I'll go to the resource and I'll show you what exactly is happening here. So it's basically, I can reuse this container in the cloud, which, I mean, this image in the cloud, or I can, as a developer, I can just go back and install it on my laptop as well, which we saw, like pulling a specific version, and we just ran that specific command. So let me show you the container, which it just runs these containers. So if I go into the log, it shows the output. What was the output of this container? So you can, every time you want to run this container, just go here and start the container, and you can start the container and see the logs, right? So you can understand from the logging what exactly it is running. So this is a container which is running one time and executing it. So for example, I'll just show you how this exactly fits in. So I'm going to use one more command called docker ps-a. It will show me all the containers which got exited. The status says exited, but if it is a always running container which is waiting for some input, which is running, as for example, if you're running a web application, it is always running. So in that case, it will be in a running status. So it's already exited. So this is the command, the docker ps command, which will show all the top top running containers. So you just need to go back and just run this command. Since none of the containers are running currently, it was already exited. So I can see it in the ps-al. That means all, in fact. So all for all these command help, right? You just need to go back and say docker, um, docker, and click, and sorry, enter, and you'll be able to see um, all the commands which is there, and you can actually find help for each of these. So which is really good. In fact, you can this is where you need to understand there are, while if you're getting started with containers and trying to learn containers, the best way is to go back and design a simple code and try and dockerize it, and use this install docker onto your laptop, docker engine, and just go through these each of these commands and execute, try and see how to run these commands. And you can easily figure out how exactly this fits. The other way is also to make sure that you install the extension, and use the extension to learn stuff, and use the extension to build and deploy to the cloud as well. You can also build it to the cloud and see how exactly this gets fit in. And you can also directly, in fact, deploy to Azure App Service or Azure Container Instance. So you can easily do that, and see how you can have different tags created. So that means you change a code here, yeah, jag Bangalore, and you can just go back and since I've changed the code, this is a new version, so I need to create a version 3. So I just need to go back to my command and type in the docker build version 3. So it's pretty easy, since this already been built before. So it's pretty easy to go back and build it, and you just need to push this particular image to the registry and start using this version 3. So it's very easy to get started with a simple set of application, simple set of code which is there, and writing a simple docker file. Try and see if you can work with the network bridging and volumes, and adding more and more complicated scenarios in terms of building with the database and bringing in the web application together and connecting with each other. All the documentation is available, so it's easier to build it. And once you have done that, right, so once you have done that, you'll be able to you'll be able to understand how you can build the application in Docker. The best way is to go back and try through play with Docker as well. There is a play with Docker website. You can actually figure that out. It's nice, easy way to build a tutorial. It has a tutorials on how to understand all these information. um, just to give information here is that this is our newsletter. We can join and contribute to the newsletter, write some amazing stuff on Docker and containers. If you're using containers, and if you're using orchestrators, if you're using different set of technologies in the cloud, you can just write about it and share it with us, and we will be able to see nominated for the Microsoft newsletter. So which is pretty nice, because it goes to a lot of developers across India. So which is very interesting, because to get that nomination itself is a big thing.